Okay, so in this session, I really want you guys to pay attention to a phenomenal human being and a guest who has gone through the whole process of having a hand analysis and the shift and the hero's journey. And he came out flying and he went back and did the hero's journey a second time. And and then I saw Mario break through again. I didn't think that you could break through three times, but the breakthrough that I saw was an absolute shift in the life with both him and his partner Kim Duramo, and it's visible. And probably the biggest edification was I said, "Okay, you look shifted, but how does your wife think about what she's seeing?" And she popped her head into the room. She goes, "It's really good. It's really good." So that for me, I mean, I know Kim. I've worked with Kim. I've seen, the things that you both have worked through, and then to have her come in and also see on her own YouTube channel a new Kim. She's totally upgraded, in energy. She looks like she just got back from Hawaii all the time for 2024. And I'm just curious, given that you have embodied a lot of the understanding of what the hand analysis shift and neurologically what's going on with the fingerprints, how you break through. And when there is a big leap in evolution, like I see as a couple, I got to know, right? And it's phenomenal. Why don't you introduce yourself? What's your background, and what happened in your journey, and what ultimately, maybe you can speak about the experience in the hero's journey, and then how your journey continued from there. And then we'd like to have a conversation clearly about what is it that you're breaking through, and what is the insights around it that maybe other people can get a value from a life partner.
Well, the first word that will come out of my mouth for you is gratitude. In good Spanish, gracias, thank you. Your work is really powerful. I mean, I know it. I definitely have experienced it. It's not gimmicky. It's real, and your commitment to being in service and serving people through what you're a master of, and you continue to evolve in your peace and your passion and your love for the work that you do and how significant it is in human beings is remarkable. And I only have a deep sense of respect and admiration for it. So thank you for what you do, first and
Right.
foremost, in front of your community. Secondly, thank you for the extremely generous and kind gesture of allowing me to share some thoughts with you, which is to say with your community, and have this exchange in a very humble way, just to share some perspectives in hopes that they create a different dimensionality, a different set of filters for the community members that are part of your community. I am a big believer that no matter how much I may know about something, there's always going to be a huge body of things that I don't know. So it's good to try to do everything I can to keep myself humble. And sometimes I have challenges doing that. So we'll try to do that. But a couple of things, important as context for your community. As you correctly said, I came in firstly as an invitation to have my hand analyzed by you, which was a remarkable process in and of itself, because of the accuracy of what my fingerprinting was revealing through your knowledge of knowing how to read it and how to interpret it. So that was one aspect. And the curiosity in me as a physician, I had the privilege of training here in the United States, where I'm speaking from, at Harvard, Yale, and Columbia universities. And I'm not saying that to impress anybody, but to impart a sense of coming from a really allopathic background.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that mean? Well, in the world of medicine, that means that there's a lot of skepticism when you've been very allopathically trained to, discard and disregard other things that may have tremendous value just because they were not part of the core path of your education, right?
Right. Yeah. Well said.
That's very common. So the fact that I was coming into your body of work, which you do with the Institute in Europe, that was in itself, uh, kind of like opening a door to a whole new dimension. We tend to think about hand readers, right? Like the fortune tellers, but this couldn't be farther away from what you do in your work. And that opened, like I said, the curiosity to like, what else is here, right? And they said, well, I have the work of doing the shadow work. What
Mhm.
is that all about? We talked about it, and I said, okay, I want to do that. And then the shadow work led to what else is there? Well, there's the hero's journey. And then I did the hero's journey. And every single time, there was more and more that I was receiving and I was experiencing and I was feeling a song along the way, which was really powerful and incredibly grateful every single step of the way. So anybody who's watching this right now, who has only met Brent's genius and his capacity to serve through just a hand analysis, I'm just going to strongly invite you to consider looking into some of the other programs if they resonate, because you won't lose anything. In fact, you'll gain so much more than what you invest in being part of his community in that capacity. So a very important plug, unsolicited, because I really believe in it.
Thank you.
And then, so I did the shadow work, which was incredible. And then I did, Hero's Journey, and that had, that took things to a whole different level. And I want to let people in the community know Brent is not the first person that I've come to do work with. And that doesn't mean that I'm undervaluing. In fact, in me saying that is extremely complimentary of his work, because I have invested myself over the past 25 years over 500,000 US dollars
Mm.
in sorts of personal development programs, from the Landmark Forum like programs to the DIYs to the couples experiences to the emotional whatever. if if I know the person, if I hear a name, I probably know the person, or I've read the book, or I've actually done their DIY course online. I've been there, done that. So I can, I've been a seeker for pretty much my entire life, and certainly over the past 25 years, more so than ever. And I voted with my wallet, so I can speak to that. But I also want to be completely vulnerable and honest with the community about how I did your work, Brent. You see, when I first came to Brent's work, I came to it with a big FOMO jacket on top of me. FOMO standing, the acronym standing for fear of missing out. Why do I say that? Because my wife, she is a deep seeker herself, and she's always, she's a mind body global expert on the subject, and she's always seeking and she's always learning, and I love that about her. But when it comes to the relationship between a man and a woman, and this we start to now get into deeper stuff here, there is, particularly for men that identify themselves as alpha males, kind of like a leading sort of guy, independent thinker, strong guy. I am taking care of my woman. I am taking care of my family. I am out there to make it happen. I'm going to the boardroom and telling people how to do it, and results are actually expected and delivered. That guy absolutely dislikes, hates is a really strong word, but proper in this case, to be told by his woman or his partner, you are lagging in this and that, and you have to go and spend some time in developing yourself. And guess what? This is not working for me.
Mm.
So a lot of the work that I approach when I did your work, there was a patina of FOMO that was running me, because I was dealing with a lot of different things in my life, in my relationship, that were really not working. And this was a way of me sending a message, quote unquote, to her that I am taking care of myself. I am doing this so that, that I'm absolutely vested in my own development and doing awesome, just to kind of gain acceptance and approval from my woman. So even though the experience of having done that work was so amazing, okay, and in many cases better than many other things I have done, it fell short, not because of your performance and the quality of your work and none of that, just because sometimes I like to use this metaphor. Imagine that we could resurrect the Buddha and bring him into this conversation with the two of us. If we weren't prepared to receive the wisdom that he actually had to give to us, which so many people, millions follow in the world, billions actually, through time, we probably would be done with this conversation feeling like, okay, that was all right. We had the freaking Buddha in the room with us. Are you kidding me? Unbelievable. How lucky are we? And it didn't really create transformation, right? So there is an element of the me, the you, we needing to be ready, us wanting to actually have something because the challenges, the pain that we're experiencing is so intense that we're pretty much pinned against the ground. And unless we do something, we know that there's some part of us that is dying in that moment or slowly dying. We're losing ourselves at the moment, right? So what happened was I did, those 3 programs, which were great. And then I went back to my life after having done a lot of that stuff. And yes, there were some significant upgrades, but there were other challenges that were being had because, just like I said, if Mario, I wasn't showing to receive everything that was in there for me and give myself fully to the moment, like fish to sea, trusting that no matter what, there will be oxygen in the water for you to be alive. Guess what? You're not going to be able to maximize the process. So for all of you out there who may be thinking that I was being a masochist, well, I think it's pretty fitting because then I called Brent. I said, Brent, I want to do the shadow work again.
You
Really?
did, yeah. Like, all right,
Yes.
coming back for a second.
I want to do the shit, not the mini shadow, not the Cliff Notes version. I want to go full in. And I remember telling him and admitting to it, say, you know what? Last time I did this for her. This time I'm choosing myself and I'm doing it for myself. And then I went through that, which was incredibly powerful, and a lot more awarenesses came in. And then I said, you know what? I want to do HJ again, hero's journey again. Oh, really? You want to do that? Yes, I do. I want to drive it again. I want to be basically sans FOMO. I want to be reclaiming myself fully, and I want to put myself through that experience, and I did. And I'm saying all of these things just to highlight the fact that if you're going through any of Brent's programs right now, and you're experiencing like, I may not be having the breakthroughs that I want. I don't know if this is for me, this and that. Before jumping into conclusions and judging, is it because the course is not good, the program is not good? Is it like Brent is not really devoted and he's not passionate or he's not a good coach? It's got nothing to do with that. Your life journey will be such that you will be able to extract out of the orange as much juice as you're willing to squeeze it for. But if you're just kind of on the dipping the toe and all you do is just rub the surface of the orange peel, you're going to get zero juice out of that. There will be no enjoyment from that. You got to be willing to really squeeze the orange and those things. So, one thing that I want to also set an important distinction, particularly for those community members who are listening. You may be the kind of man or woman who has gone through other people's programs and maybe read the tons of books, and just like Brent or myself, and you're always kind of looking for what is that thing, and feeling unmet, feeling empty or half full, or this topic is great, but it doesn't fully capture the essence of my challenges and what I'm going through. And I can tell you, it doesn't matter how many programs somebody may do, how much money they invest, how much time, et cetera, et cetera. There has to be a sheer determination that doesn't come from here, from the brain. And this is one of the things we'll talk about, a life partner concept today. That has to be woken up to be able to make the full connection so that somebody else's inspired work, like let's say your work, whether it's a shadow or HJ or whatever, they can really be integrated, not just consumed by the mind, and be experienced at a physical, guttural level. And that goes way beyond, right, what the brain can do. I think that the hand analysis work is incredibly powerful. But I also think that if we decide to, we can take it as a really insightful gate to what's possible. For
Yeah,
example,
so yeah, explain then, if we may, let's use your fingerprints. And I would like you to, share you've created a substantial program called a Life Partner, and if you're listening, you got to check this out because it is how to deal with triggers in a way that brings you the body's response to a partner. And this part that, if you've been through the hero's journey and the shift, has certainly wrestled with that topic: what to do when somebody else is completely violently triggering you. And you've answered that question. And so it would be useful to connect, that from the fingerprint, if you assert that there is this map, and the map is not the terrain, but it's your map, and that map and how that related, if I may, if you give me permission, I would like to talk about your fingerprints. And then from that, I would like you to speak how the heck you solved this thing. This is really good. And I guaranteed if you have these fingerprints, it ultimately means, this is the grid. The right hand is on the top, the left hand is the bottom. We're talking about the right thumb is and the left thumb. And the thumb is about building, because if you look at primates, the thumb, the opposable thumb, allows us to shape our environment. And there you see an outer world need to shape the environment. But then the left thumb, it's nothing's wrong with a way, but it's deprioritized when in the nervous system. That means that if you look at the right brain, which is here, versus the left brain, right hand goes to the left brain. This is the left brain thinking of building. You're talking about a very measurable impact to the world, versus this is a more feminine version of success, which we relate to family. Traditionally, family in this example would be less satisfying than building up something that never existed. And the same thing in the area of power. You would say, he's going to experience the gamut G for gamut of power struggles, and then often feel trapped or feel that he's a sense of no power in the family. And then you extend that over here to the security value, the middle finger, which is our area of security. It's the backbone that's dividing these four quadrants and these four quadrants. And that's the area of being able to balance these two areas. And you can see he's got a great need to build up a business, but then there's a guilt there, a personal value. So now we can see a hard day, it's feeling berated and feeling stuck in the family while wanting to build up a business, dealing with power struggles, continue that with a great artistry because he's got creativity in the ring finger, but a double shot of that, and needing to be an influential speaker while wrestling sometimes with relationship topics and healing topics. But the main theme is feeling stuck and devalued in the family. And what we did is we related that to the ego. And as you can see, the hand quality is a little bit dry, which means at the time that we took this photo, there was a detachment of feelings which weren't emitting through the hand, but we see multiple talents here of being look at that thumb. I often use your hand as somebody who has an exponential ability to think in a billionaire mindset. The wider that thumb is, the more the terrain you're willing to cover. Some people have thumbs that just go over here, which means that you're only managing yourself and you're in a reflective period, ready to hide underneath the car. Now, consider that you broke through that. What ultimately you did in the hero's journey, at least is what I observed, is you replaced all of the shadow concepts of feeling not belonging in the family, feeling trapped, and not feeling a really sense of value. And you turned that on its head and you said, I'm going to live a life of passion. I'm going to connect to the family. And I am a teacher, I'm a mentor. And I mean, this is no question that is the day, but at the time it was absolutely impossible. So when you broke through that, take us from there.
Loaded question. Thank you. That's awesome. I have a deep belief that you don't have, whoever is listening to this, you don't have to have my life journey to benefit from what I'm going to say. Okay. It is often said that people don't change, or that if changes happen, it takes a long time for that to occur in human beings. My experience in medicine, running now 29 years this year, has taught me otherwise, and it taught me that very, very early on. What does that mean, right? Let's be specific and a little more granular about that. Somebody dives off a pool into the shallow area, has a cervical spine fracture, and in a matter of a millisecond, that person is quadriplegic for life. That didn't take anything. That didn't take any time. That happened immediately. Somebody is going through a severe allergic reaction, what we call an anaphylactic shock. And then you give them a shot of epinephrine with the famous EpiPens, and in a matter of like a few seconds, the entire thing stops. So I've had so many experiences also with operating in people, in getting in their bodies with instruments and creating changes, anatomical changes in their bodies, and seeing things change with real-time imaging. As a radiologist, as an interventional radiologist, which is a surgical limb of radiology. So my life has been endowed with so many moments of me having witnessed first-handedly that change is possible, and it really can happen truly in an instant. So how does that relate in any way, shape, or form to the idea, or not the idea, the information that the body is gifting us by looking at our fingerprints and what was the in utero neurological patterning that was happening, which got physically, externally manifested in our fingers, right? Well, the question then is, what do I do with that? Because this is no different than going to a doctor and the doctor saying, Brent, we got some news for you. Your results came back and you are a diabetic. Well, that's a very interesting situation, which I personally, as an aside, do not subscribe to in speaking in that way. And I never did prior to all of this work. Just kind of like my intuitive way of being a physician. I never like to classify people like, you are a hypertensive. Yeah. You are diabetic. You are a schizophrenic. Why is that? Because there is such capacity to be conditioned externally by certain words and by the language, which is so handicapped in the full capability of capturing the range of human experience and emotions, that when we do that, we may actually harm a lot of people that may be susceptible to a language and not really having the insight to really question what that means.
Yeah.
How does that relate to the hand? Well, in every single way, right? Because if we have subjects that are breaking through in ways that are not being prescribed or expected by the hand pattern, then we have to actually then ask ourselves, what set of beliefs are running the individual that are allowing him or her to go beyond that? And I'll give another example. You take a dog that has 3 legs. I've seen them. You probably have too. Do you see the dog basically crawling and pushing himself with the 2 front legs? No. The dog limps around and runs just as fast like any other dog. Mm-hmm. Dog found the way with what it was given to adapt to certain situations and make a living, survive. So how is that applicable to the context of the hand analysis, which I think it's, once again, I respect the work.
It is definitely applicable. I see where you're going there, but go on.
Well, if I know that I have 3 legs instead of 4, because that's what the hand pattern says, I have what I like to say in my work, 3 options. Do nothing,
Okay.
something, or do everything. I talk about this in a life partner. Well, a do nothing would be the dog is not moving. Poor dog. Do something, the dog is crawling with 2 legs. Do everything is, I got 3 legs. I'm skipping around and running and I'm going to figure it out.
That's right. That's right.
And not only that, that dog may actually find it a competitive advantage in some instances to get through places because there's only 3 legs as opposed to 4.
Totally. I love that you can see it as a competitive advantage. Yeah.
You know, this is no different at what has happened in the last 20 years with people that have been diagnosed with ADHD. You know, we can take, one of the people that you've analyzed is Richard Branson, the billionaire, the British billionaire. Richard Branson is quote unquote a dyslexic guy, ADHD guy. You know, and if you actually ask him about the condition, he said, I think it's been advantageous, right? So whose perspective are we willing to take on when it comes to the makeup that we were quote unquote handed?
Amen, brother. Amen. So everybody looks at it and sees this as a like hell that they must go through, filled with judgment. It is definitely the source of suffering and judgment. I won't withdraw that statement. But definitely, what is then the key strategic advantage of having that? And that's the part that I think certainly I've underplayed, and you're starting to you're a prophet around, and you have seen and how they've turned this thing into an Olympian 3-legged dog. Take us to the formation of a life partner, and what was the impetus upon that, and and its origins.
You know, one of the most painful, and you can actually share it if you want to with the community, it's right on the paper, having the tendency to potentially become a lone wolf and be kind of like separate. It's on the right up, and I think it's on the inferior left right hand corner of the right up on the hand analysis.
Mm-hmm. That's a disconnect from family.
Yes, exactly. In every person's makeup, there are going to be areas that are going to be oddly shaped. They just are, right? Just how the pieces came together to form who you became as a human. Now the question is what is the gift in some of those oddities? For example, let me just use myself as an example. If there is a part of me based on the hand analysis that there may be a tendency to be separate from the tribe and become a lone wolf, well, the lone wolf has a big gift from the rest of the pack. And is that the lone wolf will gravitate towards being alone. And when you're alone, you have a lot of time to think. You have a lot of feel. You have a lot of time to ponder. You have a lot of time to actually walk to the top of the mountain and see the whole landscape that the others don't see because they're on top of each other. Those tendencies, if we look at every single person's hand that you analyze who's doing the programs, there is an inherent gift in that. But how do we get to the point of actually seeing that? And it has to come from a place of asking. You see, how did I arrive at the creation of a life partner? And how did this connect with this? Well, I had already invested 25 years of my life looking for answers to try to understand why men and women are having the disconnect that we have. At the age of 12, I had the experience, I should say, to be called to this couple's house. Excuse me, they were neighbors. And my parents said, oh, okay, sure. I was 11 or 12 years old. They wanted to talk to me about something that was happening to them. So I go to their home. They were married people. The guy was a doctor. She was a homemaker. They had 2 children. I don't know. At the time, I'm 50 years old. So 30 years ago, and they must have been in their late 40s, perhaps. I go to the house, they put 2 chairs across from me, they sit next to each other, I'm over here, and then the woman starts speaking up about all the things that are happening in the marriage that are not working out. And they start talking about their sex life and not really having a great sex life. Mind you, I'm 11 or 12 years old. I was known to be pretty precocious and kind of like mature for my age. But what stood the most after that aspect of, sharing that they were not having a great intimate relationship was the fact that the guy's face, he was in such disbelief and absolutely upset because in his perception, she was completely throwing him under the proverbial bus. How could I be, this guy who is, I'm a physician, I'm successful, I'm providing for my family, blah, blah, blah. And this woman is unhappy. Are you kidding me? Right? That's the experience the guy had. There was a tremendous disconnect. Fast forward, all these years and me being, in a relationship, being married for 14, happily, consciously married, but having had a lot of peaks and valleys along the way, not just because of my woman, but because of my own personal journey and my own challenges that I've had myself. But it rekindled all of this sense of, I need to get to the bottom of this. Why do these things happen? Why, if I'm actually so in love with this human being, why, if I'm so attracted to her, why is it that I can't connect? I consider myself a pretty decent communicator. Clearly, I am failing at this. Why is that happening? Right? Is it just because my hand is saying all the things that I am and I'm just experiencing myself as such? Maybe there's part of that. But I was completely not buying into, if that is the blueprint, that's got to be the only thing that is possible here. The answer is no, it isn't. There is such a thing as life plasticity. In the world of Brent, we talk about neuroplasticity, right? And that's a world that you know very well, and neurologists know very well, and we can even talk, about Bruce Lipton's work and epigenetics and all of these things, right? I mean, there's a huge body of work around this subject, but life plasticity is the ultimate. In other words, no matter what that makeup is, how can we actually achieve a completely different shape and outcome in our lives, in spite and despite of the blueprint? And this comes from, even having this conversation is going to bring a lot of awareness to community members, Brent, because we're starting to flip the coin. What is behind in terms of possibilities as it pertains to this particular trait that I was born with, that my hands are saying I am? What's behind that? What is the flip side of that? What's possible here? Do I have to subscribe to the blueprint? No. The same way that I did not like to call my patients, you're a diabetic, you're a hypertensive, I refused to do it when I was in practice, because I did not want to create more neural patterning that would further cement the notion that this is who you are and you have no choices. This is a really powerful, insightful thing. And I have 30 years of being in medicine to understand that. And not only that, having done a lot of, as a radiologist, a lot of functional MRI work and understanding and seeing the brain light up when being exposed to certain things. So I'm speaking from a place of knowing and having seen it with my own eyes. But why is it that we don't talk about this, right? So I took all of that, which I'm sharing with you. You don't have to be a doctor like me. You don't have to read a functional MRIs. No, just the mere awareness of what we're talking about is enough to be able to change right now the book of possibilities that you can open for yourself and what page you want to open the book at. That was the big, when I started to put all these years of my life experience and having gone to so many people's courses, having read all these books and this and that, and still not having the great results, I said, something is missing. And this was the biggest aha that came from putting all of these things together after almost 3 decades. The feeling body is the access point to unleashing life plasticity. The feeling body is the golden key to accessing life plasticity. What does that mean? I know that's a mouthful. Most human beings on the planet, in fact, let me reframe that. all human beings on the planet currently, with the exception of maybe a couple of avatars and enlightened beings, we have been living in 19th century world. What does that mean? We are still living in the time of the Enlightenment, where the brain is revered. We're still trying to figure out how the brain works. We don't know it. We've learned a lot, but there's still incredible mysteries to be solved about how the brain works. But we revere the brain as the ultimate organ in the body. But we have completely moved away, and this was my biggest aha, that I had not seen anybody talk about it like this. We have moved away from the feeling body experience. There's a lot more surface area and more organs contained elsewhere outside of the inside of the cranium than what's in here. So the question is, it would be like trying to forecast the weather in the world by looking at your iPhone, and all you're looking at is just a screenshot of you with a friend. A small slice of your life, you're using it to be able to determine everything and arrive at conclusions. But all of this, which is covered with the most sophisticated organ and system we know in the universe, until another culture from a different planet or a galaxy comes to show us otherwise, there hasn't been a single creation by mankind that is more powerful and capable than the feeling body. Yet, all of our situations, we try to navigate them through logic, through rationalizing, through understanding it. I don't get that. I don't know what you mean. We don't really go to like, I'm not feeling what you're feeling. I'm not feeling myself in this moment. I don't feel anything in this moment. It's like,
Which seems to be a deeper truth, yeah?
I can't, I feel as though I wanted to shout from the top of the mountain right now, because I can't say enough with words to convey the power of that discovery for me, which I have been able to reproduce now with people in the Alive Partner community. You know, people come to the Alive Partner community like, oh, I have this problem with my wife. We're not getting along. We're in the verge of divorce and this and that, blah, blah. Well, first of all, that kind of man or woman, for example, they don't have a foundational cornerstone to be able to communicate, which is there's no common language for feelings. Most people, when they actually want to talk about what they feel, they say, I feel like, Brent, I feel like you should have done a better job with that program. Well, hold on, Mario, that's not a feeling. What is a feeling? Are you dissatisfied? Are you angry? Are you upset? You see, when we speak feelings, it should be I feel, and then there's a blank that needs to be filled with a word that conveys what is the feeling. And the feeling is actually being informed by the feeling body. I like to call that the heart. What is it that I feel? And this has really been so dramatically game shifting, Brent, that I'll tell you an example I share with everybody. So I had a gentleman who I've been mentoring in one of my programs, the Alive Partner Mentorship Program. Yesterday he completed his 3-month period of time of working with me. This guy said, I can't recognize myself. This guy's a CEO of a really big company in New Jersey, in the eastern seaboard of the United States. And he said, I can't recognize who I become in 3 months. And I said, Brian, why is that? I said, because I didn't know that I was capable of feeling, even though I thought I was a feeling guy. He said, I am coming to a point now that I'm going into a meeting, and when I'm crossing the threshold of the door, my body, because of what I've taught him and based on these discoveries, he's already being informed of what energy is in the room so that he knows where he needs to open up and based on what he's feeling so that he can actually create impact in there. This guy comes from multiple failed relationships. The very last one, the one that he married and divorced with 2 children, estranged from his son who's 20 years old, not talking to his parents when we first met. And now he's like, all of these relationships have been rekindled. And now the family's coming to him for him to be their mentor. I'm not saying I did something special. 0. All I did was, let's just bring awareness to, are you feeling anything at all? And you know what was that portal to the feeling body and waking it up and making him be aware that it lives inside of him and every single one of us was actually 5 minutes of breathing Forget about meditation, and I'm not going to make you a guru. Nothing. This is going to be really embarrassing, but I'm going to share it. So I went through all these years of medical school. I went to the schools that I already mentioned and all this stuff. You that are listening to this, would you believe me if I were to tell you that I never learned in medical school? I was never taught how to breathe. I can talk to you about all the physiology and the exchange of gases, and the compliance of the lungs and the autonomic system and this and that. Who cares? Right? They didn't teach me how to breathe.
But
What I like to call in my community, intentional breathing. Because if we talk about mindful, it's still about the mind. Intentional breathing is about waking up the entire body to feel. And then to continue answering your question, because it's not just a simple answer. How does that connect with the hand? The hand is my biggest gift, right? If I can have a physical representation of quote unquote who I am based on what's in here, thank you. The fact that I can see it and I can say everything that you said, yes, 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 spot on. But now, how do I take that? And I start to accept that may be playing out in many instances, maybe sometimes not as much, but clearly there are patterns there that have played out in my life, just like everybody else who's had their hand interpreted by you. Well, the access point to creating life plasticity and leveraging what I was given, the hand that I was dealt, when I was born, is to actually be able to feel the experiences. And if I had not gone through the awareness of like, okay, the missing link is that there's no feeling body, this would be ruling me every single day. And I would be, then that proverbial question that Brent Bruning asked, what percentage are you in the shadow? Which is a very powerful.
Yes.
I don't think it's funny at all. I think it's powerful. I love it. I think it's brilliant. Hey, what percentage are you in the shadow today? Which is actually a way of saying, what percentage of you is aware of you?
That's right. Well, so given that the area that these low-ranking fingerprints are around shame, not belonging, and guilt, in a constellation of trying to be of service and make your contribution, how do you feel that in a way where it's not annihilation and destructive and find out you're just extending the amount of therapy in your life, that some people fear? How do you, another way of saying, how do you do that in a way of breathing that doesn't increase the fear in your life?
That's such a beautiful question. Thank you. I believe that there is a huge misconception about therapy. And I'm sure some people may disagree, but that's okay. This concept of being therapized to face the fear and face the shame and face the anger and go in there into what was the source of that and let's try to really fix that, I think is absolutely nonsense and counterproductive for most people. To me, the question is the following: how can we leverage all of the greatness that lives inside of you where you're at? How can I meet you as not as somebody who knows more than you and I'm going to heal you? And how can we take everything that is available to you, your greatness, and be able to leverage that to be able to go beyond those feelings of shame, guilt, worthlessness, and all of that, which, by the way, I've experienced them all.
You can write a PhD with that fingerprint pattern. And so how did you meet the enemy at the gate, dragon at the gate, to feel that that you weren't increasing or making the guilt bigger or ruminating on it or making it a complaint? How did you deal and get management over those feelings rather than having the feelings run you?
There's the difference between being a protagonist and being a spectator. Most therapy, they want you to become the protagonist again. Perspective is almost impossible to be gained from the inside. It's a lot easier to see the map and see the panorama from the outside, from afar, from a higher. So to me, the access point to doing that is the feeling body informs of what's there, and you actually create the space to observe what's there. You see, I agree with the essence of feel it, like you do in your work. I am aligned with that, because you are doing everything you can within the context of this program to actually have somebody perhaps be faced with feelings that have been dormant, but they're running the operating system, and they have for a long time. But what do we do when those feelings come up? Unrecognized, the discomfort is actually suppressed, oppressed, repressed. So it's not really being confronted from a really tender and kind way. To me, there's no confrontation, there's observation. So what really has changed the patterning for the people that I work with is observation. But you can't observe what you don't feel. And it doesn't come from the mind. You see, that is why I created the concept of the emotional body mapping. And I let me explain that, because this is really different. What I have discovered, and it continues to happen with every person that I'm coaching, is that every person's physical body has an invisible map of feelings and emotions. What does that mean? For me, when I experience very intense anger, right here in my chest, it feels as though it's grabbing my heart.
Yeah.
When I'm feeling inadequate or unallowed, somebody is being an obstacle, I'm experiencing being, impeded from manifesting and communicating as I want to, I feel a sensation of strangling and tingling in my throat that is very uncomfortable, and it happens every time. When I have a sensation of fear and nervousness, in my case, I feel a lot of that in my belly. My bowel feels very uncomfortable. When I'm feeling stressed over, for example, feeling overworked, my deltoid on my left shoulder becomes very tight, and I tend to deviate my head a little more and tilt it to the left. Every single time. I talked to a mentee of mine about, let's go into some of the emotions, something that happened. Okay, tell me about that incident, blah, 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 blah. Okay, great. Close your eyes. I want you to tell me, as you're thinking and bringing this moment to your mind that was just so upsetting to you and you felt so much anger. I want you to tune in right now. Let's just breathe a little bit. And I want you to tell me, where are you feeling discomfort in your body, and describe it to me. And somebody may say, I am clenching my right fist right now, and I am feeling pain right above my umbilicus, for example. Sharp pain, sharpness. And then you ask, it's like, is this something that you felt before? It's like, yes, but I didn't know it was about this, but I felt this. I tend to do this. So now we start to create a physical, pictorial representation of where these feelings and emotions are being felt. And why is that powerful? Because when I walk into a situation, even before I engage somebody, my awareness, which is way beyond what the brain can tell me, the body is sensing. And I may start to experience the discomfort or whatever the sensation is. And if I can tune in into what I'm feeling, I actually can discover already what the emotion I'm experiencing is, even without having had the interaction yet. And what does that do for me? Well, if I'm already walking into my household and I'm already experiencing chest pain, I know that I'm already in a state of what I would call contraction or anger. I don't know what's happening in the house, but maybe I'm about to run into a situation where my conversation with my wife, Kimberly, may be really disharmonious. And I'm already being told before it even happens that this may be happening. I have to be aware of that. And then the next thing that I teach as I'm really experiencing that is, how do we neutralize this sensation that I'm having and not making mean anything else but just simply my system talking to me. Is this making sense? That this is
Yeah,
as far as
perfectly clear. What you're basically understanding is that there is, in fact, a pattern to feelings. Feelings
yes,
are triggered based on anger, shame, not belonging, feeling invalidated, not being able to express yourself, and then there's actually probably even different feelings of oppression versus repression, and you can map that body if you really understand it, and use that information or the field in a way that allows you to become at a greater level of genius in your life.
yes,
That
and I've never heard you talk about this, and I'm asking now because I don't know the answer truthfully. But I intuitively I assert that it probably is the case where certain fingerprint patterns have somatic manifestations in the course of the lifespan of the individual with illnesses.
Yes, well, that's scientifically a fact. You can literally look on dermatoglyphic patterns and look at women, for example, with multiple whorls who have a higher risk of cancer because they can't slow down.
You see, this is really powerful because now we're starting to link to worlds that have not been linked. Brent, do you understand the power of what we're talking about here? This is revolutionary. It really is. Because if I understand this patterning that I have here, and I also understand and I start to discover what is the actual physical manifestation in my body of that emotional map, I can actually work with what I'm feeling to neutralize it so that I don't end up manifesting the diseases that traditionally have been associated with certain fingerprint patterns because the individual is unaware of what's happening in the feeling body, which communicates with every single cell in your body. Next level.
Yeah, that is the grand map. That's the big mystery that we don't we know, for example, that there's an epigenetic pattern. Figure if you Google epigenetics, that's the fingerprints. And we know that there are epigenetic relationships with cancer, heart disease, and those things. So you can take an orphan, put it in another family, same stress patterns, and the orphan gets the exact same cancer. So you can have non-cancerous cells get cancerous, and as well as cancerous cells never get cancer based on the epigenetic stress patterns. What we observe, or at least what I clearly see from the shadow patterns, is that it's not so much the tendency to get stressed, it's that you have a low tolerance for certain energies or emotions. And when placed in a situation like no sleep and your husband's not returning and you're having to deal with a screaming baby and your low tolerance for saying no, and so the anger is just hitting your nervous system constantly, you will get most muscular sclerosis. And I have actually tested this with two doctors, and I put the finger. I've been training people on fingerprints, and I give them a set of fingerprints. And I go, "What do you think is the situation?" And they were able to data mine and come up with muscular sclerosis as the outcome of a woman who had it only from diagnosing what I said were the patterns. And yeah,
At the same, by the same token, I think that this is where the biggest breakthrough is for everybody listening to this, and hopefully for the world as your work and the Institute's work continues to get out. The triggerability of any individual with a set of conditions that were inherited, let's call it genetically, that are manifesting externally in your fingerprinting is only going to be expedited insofar as the individual has no capability to neutralize or understand what the feeling body is sensing.
100%, absolutely. So, and therefore, not only feeling it, because a lot of people are quite aware of their sadness and their anger, but what I have often said is, just to mirror what you said maybe 10 minutes ago, is it's an observation of the feeling. It's the feeling and the registration, but then the observation of it is kind of like a compassion, like I feel you, I see you, and you're rising up to the wave of that, whatever it is, the anger, and you're bringing observation or nothing. You're just bringing nothing, which is what an hour of meditation or 2 hours of Vipassana can offer you, is to bring nothing and be in that level of presence. And when you can do it to yourself, then when you see it out in the world, which is essentially still you because it's your sensory cortex, and you're having a reaction with somebody, essentially you're still trying to deal with yourself because it's still a part of you that you favor or disfavor. You have a value relationship with anger and sadness. And when you see it out there, you go into a fear response and so forth. So what I observe is really powerful about a life partner is not only that you're offering a way for someone to understand their blueprint, but then to neutralize it. And that is unbelievable that there's an advancement of technology around neutralizing at the level of the blueprint. Because
Yes,
people just don't, they're just like, I'm triggered, but they don't get that there's a blueprint.
exactly. And you're nailing it. Thank you. You can observe what you don't see. You can't neutralize what you don't feel. It's very important because if I don't have awareness of what is it that I'm feeling, I can't bring observation to it. So the path in a life partner in my work as it pertains to this is one, we need to have a language, a common language between men and women for ourselves to be able to identify feelings. Without that, it would be like going to China to speak French and hoping that somebody understands French. You're lost. So there has to be a common language. That is essential for this work, to be able to take your blueprint of the fingerprint to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, once I start developing and working in this new language, which is not that complicated because we use a lot of the words, we just don't know how to use them and how to put them in a context that actually conveys what I'm feeling. The second thing is we need to have exercises to be able to wake up and discover the feeling body. You see, this is what people say, oh, so you're saying that the brain is not important? No. Imagine how much more powerful your decisions and your observations and your conclusions are when your brain is being informed by what the feeling body is offering to it for the sake of arriving at solid conclusions. The brain knows how to do that very well for the most part, but we have not been endowing it with all this sensory information that is available, and we are not using it consciously, but it's driving us to feel neglect, to feel embarrassed, to feel shame, to feel sadness, to feel depressed. And it runs us without having the awareness. And what do people say? I just don't feel right. I have low energy. I just, There's all this conversation that is being had in the body, and the body is trying to tell you. I'll give you an example. 2 o'clock in the morning, fire alarm goes off in your room. What do people do? They get out of bed, they get on a chair, they go to the ceiling, they unscrew it, they take the battery out, and then they go back to sleep. That's what we're doing with the feeling body. We are giving it narcotics, medications to suppress it. The alarms are going off, and we're not listening to it. Why? How come we have been missing this for centuries to such degree when it's so available to us? The most a man probably would feel is the soreness of his muscles when he exercises, maybe the erection of his penis, simple stuff. A woman will have a lot more. They have menstrual cycles. They have all those things that happen in their body. They're far more in tune with the feeling body than men typically are. Does that mean that we can't? No. It just means that in our evolutionary journey, we have not really learned enough about it. And now it's a time where I think that there's a big step up in trying to understand these things so we can actually create a far more plastic life, a far more greater scope and value and transcendence, where we're really achieving the things and we're experiencing ourselves in our true genius and our essence. This changes the whole conversation as far as I'm concerned. And that's why I tell my people in my community, the ultimate goal of a life partner is to become untriggerable. It's not that you don't feel, it's not that you don't care. It's not like you're dismissing what's coming up. No, it's that you have such degree of hyper awareness of what's coming up and the fact that it's ephemeral, that are chemical reactions that they're time limited, that if you give them enough time, they will pass. They will pass. They will pass.
So I agree that what I'm seeing in your face and your partner are a certain lack of triggers anymore. And some people carry a trigger for months, years. So, and you guys are completely released. And when I see it, it's like, it's very obvious. What would you say when the trigger happens and you're telling a story and you're disconnecting emotionally, replaying the complaint? Why that's so harmful, and why decoupling that story and going into the feelings and observation seems to be so important to reduce the trigger?
Great question. Well, first of all, who wants to live triggered? Right? I mean, any conscious person that you ask them, do you want to continue to experience this same degree of pain over and over? Is that pleasant? Is that fulfilling? So I would dare say to any human being that is conscious and is not addicted to a particular kind of patterning, right? If there's an addiction to a particular kind of situations, then until that for that individual is not severed, motu proprio, meaning I decided myself that this doesn't serve me anymore, taking that example away and subscribing to most people that don't want to have that. To begin with, that there is already a window to success there because they don't want to have it again. Okay. So now we have to move away from the avoidance of the moment, because avoiding it, you still have not been able to have the degree of observance of what's being felt inside of you to be able to overcome it. So if you ask most of those people, what is it that they feel, they'll even have a hard time being able to pin down what are the words to describe, let alone where in the body is being felt. So number one, being able to be aware of not wanting to have that pattern. Number two, being able to feel where in the body is actually happening. Number three, being able to educate them to recognize the pattern of where it's being felt. It allows the recognition that we are in the pattern, we're in the loop. And number four, rather than going into that, then we have to actually patiently observe what's being felt. So I had a discussion with my woman, and you did this and you said that, this and that. I decouple myself from the event and I go into, hold on, what am I feeling? That's the question that I ask myself immediately. What am I feeling? Not what did Kim say and what did my son do and what the heck? No. Okay, what am I feeling in this moment? Oh, I'm feeling discomfort over here and I'm feeling really anxious. My heart is racing a little bit. I'm aggravated. I am transitioning to letting that moment go and paying attention to what is it that I'm feeling. That alone completely dissolves my engagement of the moment of the event. And this is very practical, by the way. This is not psychotherapy and psychology. It's like, this is really what happens. What am I feeling? That completely severs my connection to the moment, and it just brings me into my own experience. And then I go into a state of like, oh, wow, that's what's coming up for me right now. And I do it every single time, and I teach people to do that every single time. And it gets to a point, I was talking to another person the other day. It's like, I used to have all these arguments with my wife all the time about this, and that. And I'm like, now they don't even last. She said to me the other day, it's like, who are you? It's like, well, that's what happens. And then It's like the 18-wheel truck can actually go over you and you're not feeling the 18-wheeler truck because you're not reacting to that. I have another way to think of this. If you were to go to a park that has a big stone around on the ground and you kick the crap out of the stone, who's going to get hurt?
Well, you, right?
Right? The person kicking is the one going to hurt. The stone is not going to react. The stone is not going to hit you back. The stone is not going to move. It's too heavy. It's just there. It's just there. Observation is the stone. You're just there. And the more the way that we learn to react is completely, you can be vaccinated against it by being that rock that is just observing what's going on here. So I want to impart on people that are listening to this, well, yeah, but you don't understand because I've had so many problems in my life. But I have so much compassion and I understand that I've had many problems of my own completely. But I've also learned from everything that I've actually been able to do and learn, and experience far more important than what I know, that this is something that we have not been accessing to be able to solve the challenges that life presents. And how we actually experience them is our patterning. It's a reaction to them. Why? It's like the anecdote of two guys are sent out to Africa, and they work for shoe companies, and they had to come back and tell the owner of the company what they thought. So one guy goes to Tanzania, and he's looking around. It's like, okay, great. Comes back to the owner of the company. So what do you think? It's like, forget about it. We got no business over there. Why is that? Nobody wears shoes. Oh, okay. The other guy goes out there, looks around. Nobody's wearing shoes. Oh, okay. He comes back. So you ask him, what do you think? He's like, back your bags. We're all going to Tanzania. It's the biggest boom that is going to happen. Nobody wears shoes. Everybody needs shoes.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
It's all a mindset. Yeah.
And I like to think, yes, I agree with you. However, I like to say, because I think it's the next evolution of that, it's the heart set. What is your feeling body telling you? What is the heart set of the moment? What does the heart really desire when I'm having an argument with Kimberly? What does my heart desire? My heart desires harmony. But for me to experience harmony, I need to observe myself. What am I contributing to this moment? And how is my heart set going to inform my mindset so that whatever is said, physically enacted, and so on is going to produce a very different result? I am coming, it's like the same thing like this. And I said this to you in one of our conversations. In the sport of judo, the person that moves the least is typically the one that wins, because that person is leveraging the other person's energy that is being put out forcefully to be able to use it against themselves. Very important. If you're coming to a fight and you're going to bring more fuel, you're going to have a very explosive situation. But I need to be able to be in observance. What am I feeling? And I cannot observe if I'm not feeling, Brent. This is the biggest point. I cannot observe if I am not feeling. Therefore, I won't be able to solve the problem, get out of the anger, and I will continue to reproduce the pattern because I have not been able to be informed that I am already predisposed by how I'm feeling to engage the same situation and end up having the same stupid result.
Well, what would you say for people who can't stop feeling a certain way? And the mind doesn't shut up and you're like, okay, but I'm still feeling angry or sad or ashamed or guilty. And I don't know why. I'm just going to go take a drink or something in order to medicate myself. How do you handle that, or that fear, and what's keeping that in place, and what neutralizes those situations?
It's a very good question. And as I hear it, I'll share with you what my feeling body is feeling. I'm feeling the current right on my sternum. And that current for me in my sternum is compassion.
Mm-hmm.
I went, this is what, as I heard you speak, what I heard in my head was, you have been that person too in your life, Mario.
Yep, absolutely.
You have been that person too. So watch out how you answer this question, because you have been that person too. That lives in me too.
Well, I think
And
it's in everybody, every one of us has, it feels that. I don't think that there's a human soul that doesn't feel that they can't stop, they can't let go of it.
yeah, and from there, then the question for me is, for both of us, as it pertains to that person we're supporting, how much is that person truly feeling? Because experiencing an emotion doesn't necessarily that they're feeling in their body. I'm angry. The brain is speaking. Right?
Mm.
Whatever the physiology of the anger for that individual is, the brain is interpreting as anger, and we're assigning a word to it. But very
Mm.
often, if you actually ask that person, where are you feeling your anger? They'll be like, what do you mean? I'm angry. Where in the body map of the feeling and emotions?
Ah, okay. So you're still not registering the whole. Same thing, I suppose, with sadness, because you have a lot of teenagers wallowing in the sadness in their room, crying for a long time. But there doesn't seem to be much management over that. It's just a kind
You
of
know,
a, well,
everybody thinking that this is kind of, woo woo. It's not. It's really powerful. I have a 6-year-old and a 12-year-old, as you know. And it's the 6-year-old is a boy, and my 12-year-old is a daughter. It's a girl. I have been teaching my children this already. So when my son, who is the most tantrum inclined of the two because of his age, when he starts to throw a little fit around, I'll go to him very gently with a very low voice, and I'll ask him, Gianni, what are you feeling? I said, Daddy, I'm angry. Like, where do you feel it? Tell me, Gianni, where do you feel that in your body? Well, I'm like this, Daddy. He's feeling tension. He's 6 years old, and he's already learning the language of what the feeling body is experiencing. And you know what? Then I wish I had a video to show you. And then I'll say, Gianni, what do we need to do in this moment? And he goes, thank you, Daddy, for reminding me. Thank you. We're at that level in the household.
wow.
And because I'm special or anything. No, to me, the biggest gift of this conversation is to be able to share this, because I am deeply aware, Brent, that human beings, we have been missing this component of the feeling body to really inform the brain, and be able to have a whole different experience of self. And that is a huge world changer. I believe it. I truly believe it.
So if I was to circle back to, your original comment, which was didn't know how to breathe. Uh, and let's just take those two examples. You have the too much story where I can't stop feeling, and the too little story, which is I'm not feeling. How do you equate breathing techniques? Is there ones that make it worse or better?
It's a great question. In my experience, breathing is a big equalizer, because it heightens the hypo feeling one, and it kind of buffers the hyper feeling one. You see, that act of breathing and activating your parasympathetic nervous system, really, what it's doing is bringing the extremes to the middle. That's what neutralizes us, right? If you have
Yeah,
something
yeah,
that is
8 seconds in and 8 seconds out. When you're in that equality, then you're basically regulating it into a center point. Yeah.
you go for the hypo and the hyper, the extreme ends, they are brought to the center so that they can be observed. One of the things that I teach people in my program is I don't want you to be meditating half an hour or breathing for half an hour. It's too much. You can't just go 0 to 1,000 in most cases. Just to have the awareness of 5 minutes of organic breathing where you're focusing, and I've talked to some of your community members on this, focusing on the tip of the nose and the upper lip to create a triangle. That's all. I don't want nothing complicated. We're human beings. What is simple to really feel the effects of doing that. Get me there now. Get me there. I just want to feel it. Most people start there. They don't even feel the air coming out of their nostrils. How can I actually get somebody to feel what anger is going to feel like in what part of the body? When if I'm just asking you to do something that you do all day long without thinking about it, and you can even feel the hairs in your nose or the upper lip being actually caressed by warm air as you exhale. But what I have also discovered is that this is very achievable very fast. And that creates an expanding center of awareness. It started from a very small point for you to experience, oh, wow, I can feel. Oh, wow, I do have sensitivity.
Totally.
You
And
see,
as you
it's
expand that awareness through the rest of the body, your body becomes neurologically activated.
100,000%. And then when you have the awareness of that activation, right, then I can start assigning places that that everybody knows. This is my head, this is my shoulder. I'm not thinking about medical terms. No, it's like my chest, my arm, my hand, normal. But what am I feeling? Well, in my hand, I'm feeling this. In my butt, I'm feeling this. My feet, normal. Just being normal about, oh, wow, I feel. Everybody knows what abdominal pain feels like. Everybody knows, when you have a headache, you know what that feels like. So are we capable of identifying where in the body something is feeling off? 100,000%. But why are we not activating the superpower of the feeling body so that we can actually address these negative emotions and all these patterns that live in us so that we can actually create a completely different way of doing life plasticity?
And
Well,
why
the
does that
answer,
give you more energy when you connect to those feelings versus saying those people say, I don't have time to feel right now. I got stuff to do. What's the
that's
energy? What's the payoff?
a great question. Couple of things that come to my awareness. One of them is addiction comes in many colors, shapes, and flavors. And even being busy is a form of addiction. The thought that I have to be doing this all the time or else my life is just going to fall apart. So busyness is a form, as far as I'm concerned, of terminal cancer. And it merits observation. Most people, when you look at studies that have been done about productivity, and you look at people that claim to be really busy, when they actually map out what a day looks like for them, the true total time that was high yield productivity time was an infinitesimal part of the day. So the concept of busyness is delusional for most people in the world. Just and there's plenty of data on that one. That's number one. Number two, I forget the second part you asked.
How does connecting then to these negative emotions like anger, sadness, create an energy reservoir that increases the energy for someone?
Fabulous, powerful question. Thank you. Unresolved conflicts that are being experienced at the energetic, spiritual, emotional. Let's say that people are not comfortable with energetic and spiritual words. Let's just call it emotional, psychological. When we have unresolved conflicts, they create what's called a tremendous amount of friction. What does that mean? When we're living in a friction-full state, a lot of energy gets dissipated. If somebody's not understanding what this means, I'm going to ask them to do the following. Put two hands together and go like this. What are you feeling in your hands?
Warmth, heat.
You're feeling heat. And that heat, energy was produced and released into the air. You lost energy. Okay? Emotional challenges, unresolved conflict, our hands are proverbially rubbing all day long. We're losing energy. And that energy is felt and experienced as lack of drive. I can't sleep well. productivity levels go down, fogginess in the brain, I need to have, energy drinks, et cetera, et cetera. And that also robs us of capability to discern and have clarity to address situations when we need to actually perform. Because, it would be like taking a computer and you have 20,000 browsers open. Well, the computer is working in the background a lot and now it slows down. So you try to do the new Google search and it doesn't work. So what do people tell you? Hey, you have a lot of windows open. You got to close them down so the computer can move a little faster. These emotional challenges are a lot of browser windows open in our personal operating system, what I call in my course the POS. You have to close the windows to be able to optimize your capability to work and perform. And you have the operating unit be able to be optimized. The more friction that we have, which is what all these little tabs do, they create friction for the drive, for the hard drive. Basically, they rob us of the capability to perform. It's a very important metaphor because everybody can relate to their phones not working fast enough or their computers. Close it down or reboot. A reboot could be good, diet. A reboot could be good night's sleep. A reboot could be a critical conversation like in the hero's journey. A reboot could be looking into the night of atonement, right? And with the walk of atonement in hero's journey and processing all of those things. What are we doing? We are creating a physical manifestation of something that I'm doing physically. I'm writing, I'm walking, I'm talking. And as I'm doing all of these things, I am closing the windows down in the operating system. Why? Because we are attempting to reduce friction. And guess what? It's achievable. No question in your program. I know that about your program, that's very powerful. That's what we're doing. So, but if I don't have awareness and I'm not having the feeling body tune in, it's very likely I'm not going to be able to optimize, let's say, the walk of atonement because I'm not feeling. I'm not optimizing the power of the hero's journey because something in me has not discovered what the feeling body has to give to me so that work goes to a whole new exponential level, which it's fully capable. I know that that's your work. No question.
So it's like all these memory sub-processes of the emotional system are being taxed, and what's available as it's consumed with that problem and attached to it as it's trying to solve that in an unconscious way, whatever's left is the memory you have. So going into the anger and being able to reduce that emotion allows you to kind of detach from the problems and move to a more holistic state that you can then have the energy in to resource and focus.
100%. I'll give you an example, and some of the people that are in the community who are watching this may relate to this. So one of my mentees was telling me the other day, so, I had this situation. I went to a golf tournament in a different part of the country. And my girlfriend, who, very seriously dating and so on, they're kind of really in the life partner sort of stretch. He comes back from the tournament and he goes to see her. And now he's like a walking, sensor. he's working becoming that. So he walks to see her and he said, Mario, I walk into the house and I knew that something was off. I couldn't really put my finger on it, but I could feel it. It's like something was off and it was off. So as it turns out, she comes to him at some point, and she breaks down and what was happening. She goes like, why didn't you call me, Saturday night until 9:00 at night? That's not who you are. That's not what you do. It's like, well, honey, I was with the boys, we just came back from playing 18 holes and then we're at the club and we're just, in one thing led to another, we're just having dinner. That's it. As it turns out, she had dated another man who had cheated on her at a golf tournament. Years back. In fact, the present guy doesn't know who the other man is. They've never met in their lives. This happened years ago, right? But he is on the receiving end of the experience that she had because she was triggered by the fact that it was 9:00 and she had not received a phone call yet.
Of course, right. The guilty dog shouts the loudest, right?
Yeah. So, but it's a beautiful example of where in my life, Mario's life, I have been unconscious because of not having adopted the capability to feel that there are other things in the operating system, windows that are open back there that I have no even the slightest clue that they're open, even as I say this conversation. Right? So there has to be a conscious decision on my part to feel every single day everything that is coming up. And
Yes.
I'll give an example super powerful that came up for me that relates to my hand. So yes, I'm a creator, I'm an entrepreneur. I have ideas that come to me 24/7. I love all that. But I've also experienced failure in some of my ventures. And I had the hardest time talking about these things. Because I would make it mean like I am a failure, like I failed in my life. Couldn't even approach the subject without, so no way, I'm running in the opposite direction at light speed. No way I'm talking about these things. So I was in one of my meditations. I'm a regular meditator. And I was feeling my body, and I was feeling this discomfort in my pelvis. I had the awareness, like something is off there, right? And I don't have any medical condition in my genitalia or my pelvis, nothing, just feeling off in my pelvis. And as I'm just like feeling it and observing it and just kind of like, okay, let's just breathe and bring air into those areas and just might be with it, just be here. And then I start to have the awareness of feelings of worthlessness coming in and embarrassment coming in. I'm not worthy of this. I'm not worthy of that. It's like, wow. And then I had these memories of things in my past childhood and going through prep school and situations that happened and the kind of social environment I was in. And all of these things informed me of what I was feeling and the connection to that. The pelvis is an area of creation for men, right? We engender, we get our women pregnant and everything is down there for us. That's our in the world of chakras, that's a root chakra. It's a really powerful center for men and women. When that gets blocked off, a lot of our energy to create and make love to the world, can create, engender new things, gets obstacled. It's like, wow, this is really profound for me. This is really has been living there, and I did not have the awareness. If there's a reason why I can even talk about this, is because this awareness came in to be able to unleash and heal this, whatever I adopted in my belief system that just got lodged in there. And I was not aware because I had not woken up my feeling body enough to even be informed that that was there.
Yeah. Yeah. So by bringing in the awareness plus the memories and then all of the detachment and the fears around it, saying this is a place the mind won't go, it's an electric fence. And the fear essentially always seems to be mind driven, like an electric fence, like we're not going to go here. But when you push through that with meditation, then you're able to access this area and then becomes a creative resource.
Yes. I am so sorry, but I had a meeting at 2:30 and it's like we've gone over. I'm so sorry
Yeah,
about.
sorry. Me too. I just want to say, if you're interested in how to not get triggered anymore, especially with your partner, go go to a life partner. It's an incredible program. Try it out, especially if you're a man trying to figure out how to handle his wife and you're really trying to go through that evolution. Thank you, Mario, and God bless. I really enjoyed this conversation, and it's a great evolution. And have a very happy birthday too.